I'm Panagiota, the Vice President of Differentiation here at CTC.
And I'm Kristen Hansen, the Recruiting Manager here at CTC.
And we're going to talk to you about females in leadership. Kristen, why don't you tell our audience why we're here today?
Sure. So we've realized recently that there's not a ton of visibility into female leadership at CTC, and we think that that's incredibly important, actually. You can't be what you can't see.
And one of my favorite movements that's out there right now.
So with respect to that, a lot of times within leadership, you see Taylor, you see a lot of our other male leaders. You do see women on camera, but we only have one VP who is a woman, and that is Panagiota here. So that provides us with a little bit of context for why we're here today.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the female leadership makeup at CTC?
Yeah, there's approximately 70 employees here at CTC specifically, and of that, 30 of them are women, and of the 30, 13 of them are actually female women in power.
Female leaders?
Female leaders.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, do you think that that's important?
I do think it's important because you can't be what you can't see. We actually have a young leader here who grew up in a small town outside of California, and what was modeled to her was that females could only be teachers. And so her entire life was growing up thinking that that's what she was going to be. And she moved out here to pursue college and had a part-time job at a coffee shop, and through that experience met a couple of people at CTC, and eventually we poached her because she is such a gem, and since coming here it's completely expanded her horizon around what she has the potential to be as a woman, as well as what her corporate ambitions might be. So having examples like that in the workplace that people can model themselves after and try to strive towards is really relevant for me specifically, being the only female VP. One of the things that I actually try to aspire to is to be a part of every female that's here and hopefully get to model a behavior that inspires them to grow in a bigger capacity, let them know that they can be where I am, that there's not a glass ceiling, at least not at CTC, although it is a very real thing, and that they can shatter that and or find ways to work their way up based on their merit, based on their credentials, based on their work ethic, and not just because they're a gender or a certain ethnicity or anything of that nature.
Awesome. Okay. Can you provide us with some examples of how you've seen women in leadership contribute here at CTC?
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically, all of our main revenue sources at CTC are currently being overseen by females. Our paid media department is overseen by a super strong female. Her name is Caitlin. She recently got promoted out of my department, which I'm so proud of her for. Another female leader that we have that's overseeing all of our admission program is Adrienne, who was also out of the differentiation department and directly reported into Caitlin, and now she's overseeing all of admission. And then we have our content director, who's also female, and she recently got brought on. Her name is Lori, and she's absolutely fantastic. And the other revenue source that we have is eCommerce, and we're currently in the middle of interviewing both males and females to fill that position. So it is something that we pride ourselves on. Although I will say that we don't hire people into those positions of power just because they're male or just because they're female. What's been paramount for us is that we hire people that are qualified for the job. And at CTC specifically, and I think that you can attest to this, we really focus on building the holistic person. It's not just about filling a role, it's about focusing on the person and making them become the best version of themselves. And throughout that journey and holding them responsible to their roles, they really get to live into that. And through that, we've had the privilege of seeing some people really blossom that have allowed for them to kind of climb that corporate ladder.
Awesome. And so in terms of specific contributions, can you speak to any that either you have made or that you have seen from other women leaders in the company?
Yeah, so when I first started at CTC, Caitlin Thomason, who now is our director of paid media, had brought Asana, which is a project management software, over to CTC because she saw a need for us to actually start using something that was a little bit more streamlined than just pen and paper to manage all of our clients' needs.
We are a digital agency.
We are a digital agency.
As it turns out.
As it turns out. Surprise.
Who knew?
Yeah. So she had brought that over, and I had had prior experience in using traditional tools in very untraditional ways. And in coming over, I was able to take Asana from what it was in terms of a project management system and using it into what's essentially become not only our project management system across all of our departments of CTC, but also our internal system to become kind of our intranet. So we use it for personnel files, we use it for our how-to docs, we use it for our HR handbook. All of those really fun things that typically exist on pen and paper or and separate software systems across organizations have now been streamlined into one. So that one for sure is one, but using Caitlin again, she has concentrated on what we're going to be referring to as our Platinum program and really focusing on LTV here at CTC, and has spearheaded a hyper concentration on profitability and making sure that our clients feel seen and heard, which is something that we take very seriously for our internal clients, which is our staff, as well as our external clients, who are the people that we do work for. Those would be like some of the most major ones. Yeah.
So you've talked a lot about contributions other people have made, but there's only one woman VP at CTC, and that's you. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your own contributions to the company. I know, for example, you're a huge fan of Brene Brown.
Yeah.
You brought a lot of her leadership principles to the organization. I also know that before you got here, the HR filing system was basically a garbage can.
It literally was.
So tell us a little bit about some of the specific contributions you've made.
Yeah, well, I'll take a step back and say that my framework when I came to CTC was one of empowerment, because I've never met a leader like Taylor Holiday, who not only believes in me, but also believes in what are oftentimes considered the soft skills, which is like the people development or the people empowerment that can oftentimes be contributed to women in the workplace. And he, as a strong male leader, is someone who really is a proponent of those things. And so he allowed me to come here and really bring what I refer to as my spirit animal. I definitely call Brene Brown my spirit animal. She's BB to me. We're on an initial basis. So I bring her principles of vulnerability and leaning in and courage and bravery, and how there's strength in all of those underlying factors. And really, we often talk about like this journey of becoming who you're meant to be or revealing who you are to yourself. That is one of the main pillars that I love to concentrate on here, because I think that the more self-actualized you are, the better you are client-facing, the better you are at developing your skill set that makes you more apt at your specific role, the more you are apt to adapt to business acumen and learning how to read a P&L because you understand where your limitations might be. And so really taking a step back and understanding who the whole person is allows you to really excel in your job. And Brene Brown has for sure been a proponent of that because of vulnerability and courage and really taking a hard look at yourself. Two other people that I really lean on that we've actually adapted great practices from are Sean Aker, who is literally a happiness researcher. So if you're not familiar with him, take a look at him. His books like The Happiness Project and Big Potential, we've adapted every Monday morning meeting to go around and say what we're grateful for, because it literally hardwires your brain to concentrate on finding things that are going really well in your life that allow for you to have a optimistic outlook at problems that might arise in the organization, as opposed to viewing them as fires. You can tackle them a little bit more easily. And then the other person that we really concentrate on is Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, which is something that I went to grad school for, that I have a lot of respect for. And he really focuses on givers and takers and how that plays a huge impact in the organization and what you can do to really help make your organization the best place people can spend the most time of their life at.
Fantastic.
Great.
So can you tell us a little bit about how your own personal journey through this organization as a female leader has affected others?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's been a humbling experience for me specifically. I personally never thought that I would get to this place, and it wasn't until I came to CTC that I was able to believe in myself and my own sense of worth, really, that allowed me to get to this VP level, where Taylor and the rest of the partners saw some really great impact that I might be able to have on not only males in the organization, but females as well. We recently had somebody get promoted into a new position that was actually an entire department shift. And when we offered her the position, which was very fair, she came back to me afterwards and said, you know, when I was offered that, I thought to myself, what would Panagiota do? Panagiota would negotiate this. And so then she negotiated what her salary was in her new role, and we met her, you know, where she was, and she's now starting in her new position, and that was really profound for me specifically. There's been other females in the organization that have felt as though the glass ceiling that we talked about earlier doesn't necessarily exist here. The managing partner and I have a really great relationship. He tends to go up and out, and people refer to me as looking down and in, which lead to us having some really passionate, respectful disagreements that we often have in front of all of the staff members. And I've had females and males alike actually approach me and say, I've never witnessed that before, and I feel more empowered to not only challenge somebody in a higher level, but knowing that you're a female and you can speak to someone respectfully that way, that's a male in a really high position, has empowered me to feel that I have a voice and that it matters and that I can really step into living that reality as well, which has been just amazing. It's really a privilege to get to be along people's journeys, so I'm very thankful to be here.
Me too. So last question.
Great.
I think for a lot of women job seekers out there, you know, they want to see not just the opportunities for women within the organization, but what types of opportunities that are available to them that will allow them to grow.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about opportunities for growth within CTC and specifically sort of like what that looks like for women at CTC?
Yeah. I think that, and I know we were talking about this, I walked around before we were filming today and I took a poll from males and females at CTC to find out what their perceptions were about inclusivity or different initiatives, or about how women excel at CTC versus how men excel at CTC and grow within our ladder here. And every single person unanimously came back saying, I never thought of there being a difference before, because the most qualified person just tends to excel and get recognized for it. One of our core values here is effort and interest in being an entrepreneur of your own life. And so whatever has come to be at CTC, and I'll use Caitlin actually as an example. She started here with limited marketing background, but an extensive management background, and really took the initiative to sit down and partner with the people around her to get better at what she did. And soon enough, she was promoted. And then 6 months later, she was promoted again. And then 6 months later, she was promoted again. And then less than a year later, she's now being moved into this director of paid media position. And so really what we do pride ourselves on is, again, focusing on the whole person and really developing who you are in its entirety, so that you're able to really excel in the roles and responsibilities that we have here, and that Caitlin's position or Adrienne's position that she's moving into as the admission manager, or potentially Samantha, who oversees one of our paid media teams, might be moving into overseeing Snapchat. Our Google channel is actually overseen by a female. Like, all of those things have been rewarded by people taking the initiative and showing expertise and effort and interest and drive and determination and perseverance in building out the areas that they're finding the most passion within. And we say, see ya, really appreciate that. Why don't you keep on doing what you're doing here at CTC?
Okay, so to bring us to a conclusion,
Yeah.
what's the common thread throughout everything that we've talked about today?
For us specifically at CTC, and I cannot generalize this to be across all organizations, so I'm going to make it specific to us. It's something that I've never experienced before, and it's something that we touched on earlier, Kristen, that it's really about who you are and less about if you're male, if you're female, what your sexual orientation might be, what your ethnicity might be. All of that is kind of irrelevant. And what we do focus on is you yourself and what you bring to the table. And if you're a job seeker out in the market and you're looking for a place to not only grow in your skill set, in your business acumen, but also in your own self-discovery, this might be the place for you to consider.